We are in the living room, and I might add, a beautiful living room, a beautiful house, the house of Janet Caldwell. Janet, as I understand it, and we'll talk about this later, you have lived in this immediate area for a long time, but you were actually born in the Silver City of Taunton, Massachusetts.
That's correct.
Big family?
Yes, a family of nine.
9 children.
9 children.
Now, how did your, any idea how your mom and dad met?
I was young when I lost my mom, but in Taunton, they all met each other, you know, wherever. And that's about the background I know on that.
So your mom was, as I understand it, 9. You were 9 years old when your mom passed away.
Yes, that was correct.
That had to be extremely difficult, especially for a young girl losing her mother.
Yes, and I had one sibling younger than I, and but we leaned on each other. My father never remarried. My mother passed away, and we just, every one of us have achieved. Thank God for that, and they were wonderful years.
So, the second youngest child of 9, is it safe to say your parents were Catholic?
Yes.
How did I know that?
Yeah, well,
Now, you ended up in North Attleborough because your father was working in North Attleborough, and
correct.
for a while, I guess quite a while, commuted from Taunton to North Attleborough. That's before Route 495. That's before Route 95. So he must have come Route 140, the back roads in.
I'm sure he did.
And he worked at Evans Case
Company, on East Street,
Now,
in North Attleborough. He was a licensed electrician and a hard-working man.
Now, for people who don't know Evans Case, I know it as the former Balfour property. You drive by there now, and it's about to become apartments, business condos, you name it there.
Yes, yes. It'll be interesting to see.
So you moved here with your family, so your dad could be closer to work, and you moved into a triple decker right here on Mount Hope Street?
No.
No?
I grew up on Lafayette Street.
Okay.
And after my first marriage, we lived over in a 3-family.
Now, Lafayette Street, I know is the street that I believe the Johnsons lived on. Or, yeah, so not that far from here, right around the corner.
No, right around the corner.
So you went from Lafayette Street to Mount Hope Street?
That's correct, I did.
I always joke, and I tell people that if you were to put a point on a map and pull a string, I would be a circle of about 5 miles, but you in North Attleborough, you're talking a circle of maybe a 1/4 mile.
That's correct. That's right. And, you know, but many fond memories on Lafayette Street, growing up, and in those years with the war and all. You know, we were just kind of a family. My dad just we never had a problem. Didn't argue much. We just, well, so to speak, stuck together. The older ones took care of the younger ones.
How did your dad do it? 9 children, as you said, never remarried. He must have been a remarkable man.
He was a hard-working man.
And fortunately, electricians, I'm sure I know they did not make the money that electricians make today, but being an electrician back then was a good profession.
Yes. He had rules, regulation, things that, you know, a man has to do. You know, kind of play the mother role at times, but the older sister and you know, they did a lot, and we grew up, and we always have done for each other.
Lafayette Street, very, very short walk to Falls Pond. You must have spent a lot of time probably in the water at Falls Pond during the
Certainly
summers.
did. Yes.
Long before lifeguards, long before beaches, just the neighborhood kids hanging out.
Yep. And in that area, there were many children our age. My younger sister, myself, and my brother, but the others were in high school, in middle school at that time. But there was always a place just to go outside in the morning after your breakfast. You felt safe playing in the yard.
It was
Come in for lunch.
certainly a different time.
It was a different time.
How different was North Attleborough back then? What did you do for excitement? Was that before or during Jolly Charlie's heyday?
No, there wasn't a lot of activities. Your activity, like as I said, the routine, would go out and play in the morning and then in the afternoon. And if there were any functions, my dad was very, very, very good baseball. That was one of the sports he really liked. So if there was something to do with sports, they started to generate at that time. He didn't play in North Attleborough, it was a league. But so that is a big part of my family. Most all of us, we love sports because it's healthy, it's good, you're competitive, and that all, again, generated from my dad.
We'll talk about your love of sports a little bit later on. So you moved to North Attleborough. You were already in school over in Taunton.
Yes, I was.
You are a graduate of North Attleborough High School,
I
however.
certainly am.
Now the building you went to is now the community school. So after high school, what did you do after high school?
I really always liked to work with figures and typewriter. I have even a small one in the dining room that's just probably 1.5 inches. It's metal that I was given at a place that my very first position was at Jewel Cross in North Attleborough. And I will tell you, you get very nervous. You don't know what to expect. There were just 3 women, and I learned a lot from the owners. Were just wonderful people, the people I worked with, and the 3 of us worked together as a team.
So back then, women certainly did not attend college as much as they do now.
No, that was correct.
So that wasn't even an option.
No, one of my brothers, who was just 1.5 years older, yes, he graduated from Bryant, at Bryant College in Rhode Island. But again, at that time, financially it was a lot. Now you'd say, wow, you could have gone to school, but no. It was, to get the experience. My dad had taught us to go out in the world and try to achieve. And if you achieve, things will go well in your life. You just have to keep trying.
I had a chance to sit down with Charlie and Doris Legg, and we talked about how different things were back then, and dating. They would go to dances at the old Jack Witchy's arena. And what was a big Friday, Saturday night like in North Attleborough as a teenager?
Yes, and that was really, and there was YMCA, which is across from the fire station, and that was a big, if you could go to that, and it was entertainment, and dancing and that. And but my father was not easy with your dating. He would certainly, if you came in or met him for the first time, he would be straightforward. So when you came home, as you got older, they had a car, you would go in, say goodnight. And if not, there was a light in the outside, one little flick. It's time you're here, it's time to come in.
So your dad wasn't the type of guy who would let his daughter's boyfriend pull up front, beep the horn, and have her come out?
No, never.
Needed to act like a perfect gentleman.
Yes.
So you moved to Mount Hope Street, and who knew? You probably had no idea that you'd spend the rest of your life on Mount Hope Street.
No, when I was married, and through a friend, they told me about this third floor. In fact, today I was talking where I work part-time. There's a woman, and I will share it with you and many people. In those days, if it's a third floor, you had to hire. It was a hall that would take everything through a window. And if you look across the street, you'd see the window. I see it often, and I think about how that was done. So I was married, and then...
How'd you meet your first husband?
I met him in high school.
Okay. So a North Attleborough High grad as well.
Yes, and he played football, and I was the head majorette.
Oh, really?
Yes, and I get teased about that within my family sometimes. But no, I have sisters that were cheerleaders. Yes, my father had us get involved, and my brother was an excellent athletic guy. So we really, without my dear mom, we had a father that made sure that we were involved. And later in life, we all achieved, in different levels. But it's wonderful memories.
Well, the fact that your name was even brought up as someone that we have to sit down and talk about North Attleborough says certainly a lot about you. Where was the wedding ceremony, reception, if there was one, your first wedding?
I was married at St. Mary's Church, where we all went, and it was a little small, it was like a American Legion or something like that.
Yes.
And believe it or not, my first husband and I saved the money, and we went to New York on the train.
Really?
Yes.
New York City?
Yep.
First time there?
Mm-hmm.
What was that like?
Awesome. It was great.
This girl from North Attleborough in New York City.
Yes. On the train, just like, it was wonderful. Wonderful.
Now, were you working at all when you first got married?
Yes, I was, and then I became pregnant, and I stayed in Jewel Cross until 2 weeks before I had a surprise a week and a half before my due date. That again, back in those days, they heard an extra beat. Then I was going to have twins. Well, it's shocking financially, and wow. But again, you have to, we made it, just had to get 2 cribs and had to get everything double. And my twins were the light of my life, of course. And I did not have any other children. And soon, they're going to be 65 years old.
So you lost your husband. He was 51 years old. How old were your children at the time?
They were married.
Okay.
Both were.
All right. So you weren't in the type of situation that your father was in, bringing up.
Yes, I think of that. I think of that a lot. Yes. But you have to have that strength and faith. But I think that was generated from the way we were brought up. We helped each other and so forth.
Oh, times were certainly a lot different, that's for sure. Much better than they are now, I would argue. I know you as Janet Caldwell, and I certainly knew Lester Caldwell. Everyone in North Attleborough knew Lester Caldwell, the former fire chief. How did you meet Lester, and what made you decide to get married?
Well, I had known, in fact, he had dated one of my sisters at one point in time, I guess, because there were 7 girls in my family. But I met him, I knew him, and within, I can't tell you the element of times, but, he just was the kind of guy that liked the things that I did, and I got to know him because after I was alone, and it was an adjustment for my family, But I will tell you a funny story about, I call him Let, but he was amazed at the number of people I knew, and because he was so active in town, and this, I think, is just something special that he said, Janet, you are Acme Runner-friend. You see, but if, my personality is, if I might see you in the grocery store, and for some reason, generate a conversation. And so, my marriage with him, we traveled a lot, and he liked the same things as I did, and you have to have that harmony. You must know you're married, and I read about you and your family. So, and and he had children and wonderful visits. So it was a wonderful. I was married almost 25 years to him.
What rank was he in the fire department at that time when you first met?
He was on fire alarm, where they used to climb the poles up and, have all those things to hold them up. And then he became, when John Grimes passed away, he was the fire chief, he applied for that, and he was in that position for, I think, I've lost track about how many years, but maybe 12, 13.
Because the wife of a fireman, especially 24 hours on, 24 hours off, 24 hours on, that can be a lonely life. And even when he was chief, he wasn't working 24 hours on, 24 hours off.
Yeah.
But he might get a call at 3 a.m. in the morning and was out the house.
Mm-hmm. Well, when we were married, he came. We lived here, and yes, that bell is in the hallway, going in the cellar right now. And he was a very hard-working man. Grew up on a small scale of farming on Hoppin Hill. In fact, his name, any fireman would know this, and a lot, that he was called Champ of Hoppin Hill. And actually, in the den I have is a book that one of his daughters did about him being a champ. So that leads up for me to say to you, he said, Janet, I'm going to retire. I haven't traveled a lot. I want to see a lot in my life with you. And we did. you know, to the Caribbean many times, but to see we took a trip from Seattle down to San Diego on the coastline. That was special. But he was only 62 when he retired, but that was his, he said, I just want to do something other than work. I want to travel. And I did. And I tell you, it wouldn't take me long to fill a suitcase. No.
You told me before we turned on the cameras, you have worked at one time or another in the school department. We're going back 53 years. How many superintendents, how many principals? It's amazing. You are like the history of North Attleborough public education.
Well, I'll tell you, you know, you have to like what you're doing in your life. And I just, when my children were in fall school, because that's where they they attended. I would go and work and help the teachers and whatever. And that generated me to want to maybe, you know, they were just beginning to have the funds for secretaries. And there was a special woman named June Robertson, and she was working part-time. And I was asked if I would like to have a position. So I worked until when Let decided to retire. I did myself. And I was 5 years younger than him, but I wanted to do the same thing with your loved one. So as time went on, I worked a long time. I worked at Martin School. I worked at Allen Avenue School. These were half one day and half another. Unfortunately, I had an older car, so I could do that. And working with children at the elementary level is it's part of you wanting to get up and go to work and see them and show their pictures and come in and cry or have to call mom because might have had a little accident or whatever. It's a mother role in elementary in those days, and you know, working for a superintendent, under a superintendent and your principal, it was a great experience.
You still work part-time in the superintendent's office. I went to see you a couple weeks ago, earlier this week, at the Woodcock Administration Building, the former Woodcock School. Why don't you just enjoy your retirement? Whoa, why are you still active?
You know, I've asked myself that. And, you know, and as after losing I just knew you have to keep yourself moving, and I love working in the yard. As you see, I don't have any lawn because Mount Hope Street really on this side has a lot of rocks and so forth. And I'm a people person, yes I am. And I really, really enjoy keeping my mind busy. And that seems to be a funny word, but my physician told me, just whatever you're doing, Mrs. Caldwell, continue to do that. And God's been good, and my health has been good, and I think many people, it keeps you stimulated. And in the administration building, they are like my family, and it's a wonderful atmosphere, right from Superintendent Holcomb all the way down. But whatever school I worked in, elementary, there were party times, you know, different things, events that you got involved in. It kept my mind stimulated, I think.
Helps keep you young.
And that's exactly what my physician had said. And my children are really pleased that I still do that too.
How about town politics? I understand you were on RTM.
I was until I got married, and he's probably up there in heaven saying, but I didn't want to sit with him because he had been fire chief and then he was RTM. And so he'd say, you know, sometimes, oh, I don't want to ask you if you voted for that or whatever. So I enjoyed doing that too.
I have to bring in a prop here. One of the things that keeps you young is your love of sports, and you talked about this. This was a football that was in a box. She came home a few weeks ago. It's from, let me see if I can get, honoring 25 years of loyalty, Lester Caldwell, the Patriots logo signed by Robert and Jonathan Kraft. Janet told me this and I was amazed. I said, even in the freezing cold, she is a Patriots season ticket holder. She goes to every game.
I do.
With your son.
Yes. Bless him. No, we tailgate with wonderful people. And I really, then again, people say, how can you do that? Well, when you like something, you can do it. I'll tell you, when you're there in the stadium, and you've probably been there, there's nothing like the fans.
Oh.
And that is probably at least a half of why they are, you know, been so successful.
Oh, absolutely. And certainly Mr. Kraft played a big role in that. Final question. Many, many, many years from now, when you're no longer with us, how do you want people in North Attleborough to remember Janet Caldwell?
Well, probably that I might have been an Acme Renner friend to them. You know, it'd be okay if they didn't have to, you know, the way I feel about my town, I love it, and the people that I've known through it, and you know, you have to be happy in your life. And living here, I've been very happy. And, you know, I've had my times thinking about the North and Attleborough game, you know, but that spirit is, I've always had that in mind. For hope them, I see them go by my house, track teams. And now, even if they beat Attleborough, you know, I know how you feel. I go out right on the front door, and I clap for them.
The bus drops them off in the falls, and the tradition is if you win, if you beat Attleborough, the bus drops you off at Mason Field. It used to be Falls Market, they would drop them off. And then the team walks up Mount Hope, right onto Landry, onto Wilson Woody Way, back to the locker room, and you're out there watching them, I'm sure, go by.
And I clap and clap for them, and even when I was alone, and when that was alive, he would be out there too, you know, but I've always done that, always. You know, it's just the way I feel, you know.
Well, I want to thank you so much. This has truly been a pleasure. I've heard so much about you. I first met you about a month and a half ago when we were planning this visit. I saw you earlier this week, and I'm so happy that we had this chance to share this time with you. And for the people of North Attleborough who don't know Janet Caldwell, now they know her a little bit better.
Yes, well, thank you so much. I was really honored that you got in contact with me, and thank you.
Thank you, our pleasure.
Yes.